It is a Tuesday evening. If you're watching on the live stream here on the Where Eagles Dare podcast with Lee and Tubby, I am Lee. With me always is Tubby each and every week to talk all things Eagles. Before we talk all things Eagles, Eagles won again. We know this to be true because we watched the games. We love our Eagles, and they came away with a 25-20 victory in Chicago in 6-degree wind chill weather. So before we get into everything about that game, let's go ahead and do what we do and let the music play.
Fly, Eagles, fly, on the road to victory. Fly, Eagles, fly, score a touchdown, 1, 2, 3. Hit 'em low, hit 'em high, and watch our Eagles fly. Fly, Eagles, fly, on the road to victory. E-A-G-L-E-S, Eagles!
Time the Eagles get a victory, and that is what they did this past weekend. We have played that song 13 times on the season. The Eagles are 13-1. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, one of the best starts ever. And this actually, the name of this episode is A Win, but at what cost? Because it wasn't all great news coming out of Chicago. First of all, it wasn't that great a game for the Eagles, but we'll get into that. But then we also got some bad news. But here's some good news. The Eagles now, with that victory and Dallas's loss at Jacksonville, it means that the Eagles just need to win just one of their remaining 3 games to clinch the number 1 seed in the NFC, as well as the division, the NFC East. Just win one. Also, if they don't just win one, if Minnesota, San Francisco, or Dallas lose, all 3 lose one. All 3 have to lose one if Philly doesn't win one. Then they're also the number 1 seed in the NFC playoffs, and they win the NFC East. So that's great news. But here's the problem. Now, here's the thing: is this news keeps changing after the game. And we're gonna lead with this before we get into the breakdown of the game, because this is the news as far as Eagle fans are concerned. We need 1 win to get the number 1 seed. We know that. Jalen Hurts hurt in the Chicago Bears game, hurt early in the 3rd quarter, I believe it was, or actually 1 minute left in the 3rd quarter, right before the 4th quarter. He was running the ball quite a lot in Chicago, and he was just pretty pummeled and laid on. It wasn't a pretty sight. Here's a picture of it right here if you're watching on the live stream. And this is the play where he got hurt. He got crunched. And it was, he was a while getting up. We all held our breath, but then he did get up, and he played extremely well. But now the news out of Philadelphia is he's uncertain to play Saturday against the Cowboys due to a sprained shoulder that he suffered during the game in Chicago. The injury isn't considered to be long-term. Now, the first thing you got to look at is it says via Adam Schefter. That should have been my first clue to kind of pump the brakes and relax a little bit, because all homeboy does. Now, Schefter's a lot of times right, but one of the things Schefter also likes to do is he likes to embellish quite a bit. So that should have been my first clue that maybe, because I started panicking. I started, hyperventilating. Things were really bad. But something you have to back up and look at is in that Chicago game, after he hurt his shoulder, he threw this amazing pass to A.J. Brown near the end of the game that led to a 68-yard touchdown, or it led to a 68-yard play that led to a touchdown that actually sealed the game for the Eagles. So the guy was out there making throws with a sprained shoulder. And it kind of, so you kind of wonder how bad it was. Now look at his stats after the sprained shoulder. Jalen Hurts in the 4th quarter yesterday on a sprained shoulder, 6 of 9 for 102 yards, 6 rushing attempts, 9 yards and a touchdown. That was after he hurt his shoulder. Now we're getting word from the Eagles camp that, yes, the shoulder is hurt. Also want to throw this one up here. This is pretty funny before we get into the news out of the Eagles camp. So this was after the hit that Jalen Hurts took, and everybody was, gathered around him before they helped him up. Jordan Mailata said that after quarterback Jalen Hurts took hits and popped up, except for the one it took a little longer on. This is what Jordan Mailata had to say. He said, that one scared me because he just laid there. I ran over and said, stay down. And he said, pick me the F up. And I said, yes, sir. And so, and they picked him up because that's the type of quarterback Jalen is. Now, all that being said, we heard today, and I'm going to play the clip from Nick Sirianni, who actually said today the following regarding Jalen Hurts' status for Sunday or for Saturday. I'm sure the game's on Saturday. Here we go. This is Nick Sirianni.
Shoulder, and I do not put it past Jalen Hurts. I don't put anything past Jalen Hurts as far as his mental and physical toughness. So there's a chance he could play this week. And so he is one of the toughest guys I know. And he heals fast. He's a freak. His body is not like, pardon me, yours or mine. Right. And so I'm shaming myself there a little bit too. His body's not like ours. He heals fast. He came back fast from his injury last year. And you know, I will not rule him out. I will not put a timetable on him. And we'll see what happens this week, but both guys he'll be ready to go if he can play this week. And so will Gardner.
That was today's actual press conference. So this is today. This is not coming from Adam Schefter. This is coming from head coach Nick Sirianni. So now going to welcome Tubby in after all that, because we're going to get into the Chicago game. We are going to talk. There's a lot to talk about with that Chicago game, including why Jalen got hurt in the first place. But when you hear that from Coach Nick, what are your thoughts as far as Jalen Hurts' availability for Saturday? Do you believe him? Do you think that Jalen has a possibility to play?
My thoughts were, man, first thing I thought about was, is Jalen Hurts T'Challa? I mean, the Black Panther himself. Is he out there drinking the purple flower and getting his power? I'm just asking, man. He doesn't heal faster than anybody else. We all have, red blood cells, white blood cells, yada, yada, yada. But he is very strong, very impressive after that throw. So it makes you believe that he's available because of the stats that you've shown. Still hit a 68-yarder. One of his best throws of the day was with a sprained shoulder. I'm sure a lot of it was just due to adrenaline. And he probably woke up that next morning and was like, oh, boy. I'm sure they iced it down pretty good. Would they get those shots, like cortisone shots or something like that to kind of numb the pain and inflammation and stuff like that. So I think if the season was on the line, I think he would play. But the season isn't really on the line. I mean, the Eagles are 13-1. That's one game less than perfect, 14 games into the season. So, it was unfortunate. It's like Devonta Smith said, things happen. Like it could have, it's just when you see your quarterback running the ball so many times, you just know it's going to happen at some point. I know you just asked about the Nick Sirianni thing, but I don't believe him. I think that Gardner Minshew is going to play against the Cowboys. I think with the Cowboys losing to the Jaguars, it makes it believable that Jalen will sit because it's like the Cowboys bought us a game.
Yeah.
They bought us a game. So they did us a favor. We didn't even know it. So now I don't think Jalen will play this week. But we'll get into, a little bit Dallas right after we get out the Bears, but I do think Jalen will not play. No. They may rest him for 10 days. They may rest him for 2 games. Depending on how Minshew plays against the Cowboys could determine how long they can rest Jalen a little bit more, which could become a slippery slope with resting for too long, 4 or 5 weeks, and now you're super rusty, and then you're blaming them for that. It's like, we have to be careful here either way. But we still want to protect the franchise quarterback, man. So it's a lot to think about here. 13-1, so he's done a lot already. So we'll see, man. But I don't think he plays.
I'm in the Nick Sirianni camp. I don't know if this is gamesmanship, if he knows that Gardner is going to start and he wants the Cowboys to not be preparing for Gardner Minshew. Because F Adam Schefter for leaking the stuff in the first place. I know they got a job to do, but these guys, man. And Schefter is one of the worst, where, he's just got to get the scoop and then, again, gives this hot take and overdoes it. The way it spread like wildfire fire throughout the media, It sounded like it was over. Now, a lot of people said that, and the Philly media was like, look, we're told it's not serious. He's going to be ready for the playoffs. But the word we were getting from all of them, especially ESPN, which I will talk about them in a minute. What we're getting is that, he was going to miss the rest of the regular season. That he was only going to be ready for the playoffs, and that it could spell the doom of the Eagles, which is, let's be honest, which is what they all want. This is what they all want. So part of it, I think, is gamesmanship from Sirianni saying, look, he could play. So Dallas, you better be prepared. I also think, honestly, when I look at his face, I don't see somebody that's out there blowing smoke. I think he truly believes that Jalen possibly can suit up. We'll just have to see. Unfortunately, it's not a Sunday game. It's a Saturday game. So it's one less day of preparation. He can go without practice. He can go on just rest. And if it's not that serious of a sprain, I think you might want Jalen to play against the Cowboys rather than in the cold of Philadelphia to try to win it against New Orleans or the Giants. Playing indoors in a controlled environment might be good for Jalen. Then he can sit New Orleans and Giants. I think if I were in his position, what I would do with Nick Sirianni, and so we'll get into more of the Cowboys in a minute, but I think what I would do is I would start Minshew, and if he struggles really, really badly, I would have Jalen in pads on the sidelines and be like, dude, can you go in? Because it is an important game. It is one of these things right now where there is so much that has been talked about up to this game that it's almost a mental issue as far as mental momentum going into the playoffs by beating these guys who will not shut up. I don't know if you saw it, but today's ESPN, again, screw ESPN. I'm done with ESPN. I'll never watch ESPN except if they have a game on and I have to watch ESPN. But if I have an alternative, I will never watch them again. Their power index came out and I'm done with them. They've been doing this every year that I've been alive. And their power index has the number one team in the NFL right now, the Dallas Cowboys.
There's no way.
Dallas Cowboys number one at 10-4. Google it.
Man, you sure you didn't watch like a show? It wasn't like Stephen A. Smith's list?
Right here, right there. I don't have the graph. Yeah.
Are you telling me?
Yeah.
I have ESPN up right here. I'm speechless. Let me see.
Yeah.
It just doesn't make sense in general.
They lost to the Jaguars. They have lost 4 games, and yet they have them ranked. ESPN has Dallas ranked number 1 overall at 10-4, Buffalo number 2 at 11-3, Kansas City number 3 at 11-3, Cincinnati at 10-4, and the Eagles at 13-1. So, for all you Philadelphia fans out there, for anybody that listens to the podcast or watches the live stream, stop watching ESPN if you're a Philly fan. They don't like you. They are a Dallas Cowboy network. It is clear to me. They always have been. But this right here, it solidifies it for me. I will never trust anything they say. I will never watch any of their pre or post game shows. They're just a political network anyway, masquerading as a sports network. Done with them. That is
Skip over there with all that Dallas Cowboy stuff. I mean,
of course, yeah, you can't watch him either.
It's spread. I'm just saying, like, that's all they talk about all day is Dallas Cowboys. On
Fox, Fox Sports 1.
All they talk, because Skip is a Dallas Cowboys fan.
Always.
And Shannon Sharp is a Hall of Famer. Even if Skip doesn't care.
Yep.
But we don't want to derail too much. But yeah, man, they definitely there's a bias because of the fans. Like, Dallas Cowboy fans, Eagles fans are at work, man. Dallas Cowboys fans, they sit on the couch. That's the difference. We don't have time. So they need all this energy. Dallas Cowboys fans and a little bit off topic, but
we're coming up on Dallas week. We're coming up on Dallas week. This is not off topic. You're on.
Remember we were overseas at AFN. Remember AFN, right? Armed Forces Network, right?
Yep.
And the 2 teams they would play often was Dallas Cowboys and the New Orleans Saints because of the fan base. But the New Orleans Saints, you would be like, how is New Orleans playing? Because they would vote game of the week every time. Remember they would play the game that had the most votes, and Dallas Cowboys and New Orleans fans made sure their team was on this limited network overseas. And yeah, man, but just the fan base itself, man, it's all about clicks and ratings.
Yep.
Clout is at an all-time high, and these networks aren't above it. They know where their fan base is. Like I said, Eagles fans are at work. Dallas Cowboys fans are on the couch watching and calling in. So that's who they are pandering to.
I waited my whole life for the Eagles to be this dominant. And in 17, we had such a dominant team, and we got very little respect. And then after we beat the Rams, I thought we would get some, but then we lost our quarterback, and so rightfully so. A lot of people picked the Eagles not to make it with Nick Foles, with a backup quarterback, but they just kept doing it until the Eagles won it. And so this year, when we've got a complete team, I don't know why I expected the mainstream sports media to respect the Eagles a little bit more than they're doing. But this here is the ultimate slap in the face, because our quarterback went down, and it's not like he's not even going to be back for the playoffs. We don't even know when he's going to be back. Yeah. This is all based on rumor and speculation that he's done, because this is why that number changed. Eagles were top of the power rankings. All of a sudden, Hurts gets hurt, and they're going to vault the Cow. They haven't even played yet. If you wanted the Dallas and Philly to play on Saturday and Dallas wins the game, and then you want to put them number one over the Bills and Chiefs, fine, do it. I don't care. But they haven't even played the game yet, and the Philly has one in hand on them. That brings me to another thing about the Dallas game coming up. This has nothing to do with preview. This is just has to be to do with their fans. I have a lot of friends who are Dallas Cowboys fans. I mentioned that over and over, and they are fine. Most of them I can talk to, or we just don't talk about football because I don't want to hear it. But every other Cowboy fan and anybody that's involved with the Cowboys in general, I am done engaging with. You can't speak to them. I'm not even going to try to argue with them, because here's they have this fallacy of logic that is just confounding, because you watch now. Every time they lose, there's an excuse. That they lose to the Jags, and they just go into hiding, and then they come out and go, well, we had our eyes on the Eagles. They come up with every single excuse. When the Eagles beat them, oh, you beat a backup. But I guarantee you, mark this down, if the Eagles lose and Gardner Minshew is starting on Saturday, the Cowboys will be running through the streets, waving their shirts off, bare-chested, screaming like they won the Super Bowl. They will be on every message board saying, "We the boys, we the boys." They'll be saying it over and over again, because that's what they do. They've done it in the past. I had a guy on social media last week saying that Dak had a 9-3 record against the Eagles, which was wrong. It's 7-3, but they don't even count the games where the Eagles rested their starters, which there's at least 2 of those. Right. But God forbid the Eagles take credit for a win against the Cowboys when they rest their starters. They will lose their minds. So you cannot talk to them. I'm just done. I don't even want to. Even if my friends who are Cowboys fans come at me, I'm not engaging. I'm done answering. Mm-hmm. I'm done talking to the Cowboys about them, because without a doubt, they are the most despicable franchise in the NFL. They get way more love than they deserve. What have the Cowboys done? Just tell me right now, what have they done this year that is so damn impressive? And I'm censoring it for the people out there, for families. But what is, because I could really go off. We know I did a couple of weeks ago. What is so impressive about the Cowboys that they've done this year? They've lost 4 games. They just lost to the 5-8 Jaguars, who the Eagles beat, mind you. They lost to the Green Bay Packers, who the Eagles beat, mind you. They lost to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who got a crippled, 40-year-old man out there at quarterback. And they lost to the Philadelphia Eagles. But yet they are ranked number 1 in the power rankings. You can't explain it to me. The only way you can say it is it's ESPN. So whatever happens on Christmas Eve, you know what we're all hoping for, whether it's Gardner Minshew or Jalen Hurts. I want them to go down, and it's not just because I despise the team. It's because it's what's right. This is what's right. They don't deserve a win against the Eagles. They don't. And it's a shame that Hurts is injured, because I believe that if Hurts was healthy, we would have destroyed their ego a second time. we would have sent them running. The only thing that's even giving them a chance is Gardner Minshew being in the game. And I do think it's unlikely. I've said it before. If Hurts goes down, we're screwed. That we're gonna struggle. And I do believe that Minshew could possibly beat the Saints. He could possibly beat the Giants, but I don't think he can beat the Cowboys. Just because of their defense. I don't think he is prepared. He's not even had any work enough. He's not had any in-game work enough at all this year, except for some mop-up duty with backups.
Which
I just don't think he can come in. It's good to have him come into this game and get some work so that he can face a team like the Saints next week if he has to and win that game. But I just don't see him winning against the Cowboys defense, because I do respect them. I hate them, but I know their defense is ranked number 1 in the league, except after the Jacksonville game where they gave up 40 points. But again, they had to pick sixes. But I respect their defense, but that's about it. I respect their running game. They have 2 of the best running backs in the league. Well, one. I think Zeke has lost a step, but Tony Pollard is one of the most electric running backs that goes around the end. He doesn't go through the middle, but around the end, he's very hard to catch. So I respect that. So I do think that this is a tall order with Eagles, even with all their weapons other than Hurts, to come away with this game. And Durant.
You know what's so crazy about, you mentioned the power index and all of those things. Here's what makes the whole thing hypocritical.
Yeah.
How many games were the Eagles projected to win at the beginning of the season?
Good point.
4 or 5?
Wasn't many. We were told we were going to be behind the Giants. We're going to be behind the Giants and Cowboys for sure.
It wasn't nowhere near 13. It was a losing. We were projected to have a losing record this year. I mean, you talk about flipping that completely on its head with a 13-1 start. When it comes to Minshew, luckily he has been able to get in the game recently. It's not the same as, mop up, like you said, mop up duty. But at least he's had it, because he probably doesn't get a lot of first team reps. So he's probably has rapport with guys like Watkins and probably like Pascal. So, look to see him get some more catches. All I expect Minshew to be able to do, and I talked to my brother about this, Eagles fan as well. We still expect like Minshew to be able to go in there and say, okay, AJ Brown on a slant is hard to defend. You should be able to hit the slant. Devontae Smith on an out or a slant is hard to defend. You should be able to hit the out or the slant. You have Dallas Goedert back. So you'll have the middle of that field. You'll have that big target back. I mean, you have everybody except the only new person is Gardner Minshew.
Right.
So, and I don't think he can just make that whole offense fall apart. We still have the best line in the league. We're just going to run the ball heavy. Stuff like that. Only thing we really lose is the rapport with the offense, just the cadence of Jalen, just everything, the check downs, just a different play, just different schemes. And just that dynamic ability to, when all else fails, he can still bail you out with his legs. Gardner Minshew is not interested in running. He's very small, so he definitely that hit that hurts with it. So that probably would have broke Minshew's collarbone just because of the sheer size of Minshew's a regular looking guy. But anyway, I think he still should be able to come in there, hit AJ Brown in the slants, hit him on the out routes. I'm not saying we're going to throw the deep ball a lot, but he should. Any quarterback should be able to hit a post and a slant. Now, which to your point, they're going to come after him. Micah Parsons, I guess if he having a day, I think it could really complicate things, but this is where we go back to our strengths is in our line. Lane Johnson, to say that Micah is going to have a good game is to say, who is Lane Johnson? Lane Johnson is somebody. Mailata, to say Lawrence is going to have a day, then you're saying Mailata's nobody? Are you saying, Kelsey's nobody? You saying Kelsey can't lead that line? You think Kelsey can't make the right adjustments? It's so many things. Football is so complimentary. There's so many other aspects and so many other leaders on that offense. And you get Dallas Goedert back. I can't emphasize that enough. Who I said is a top 5 tight end. So you even get another threat. You don't have to, even though he probably has better rapport with Calcaterra and because, second team guys, he probably runs a lot of the offense with him. So there's a lot of rapport there. So I just think we should be able to run the ball. I think we'll get to Dak a lot. I think we're going to frustrate Dak. I expect us to pick Dak off. I expect a good balance, but having Dallas Goedert back in a healthy line, I just think we still should be able to be functional, man, because it's going to require over about 25 points to beat Dallas.
Right.
That's just my opinion.
I agree.
We're not going to beat them scoring 17 points. I don't know how.
Yep.
So we have to breathe confidence in this offense to get going.
Yeah.
Because we're going to need them. There's you mentioned the dynamic backs that they have. Tony Pollard out the backfield is a problem, man. He is an absolute problem. Getting to the outsides, absolute problem. Zeke, he's still a good between the tackles running back.
Yep.
Still have to respect him. And he is playing against the Eagles. He's hyped up too. It's Christmas Eve. The whole world is watching. The whole world is going to be watching this game because, they all are, soccer isn't going on right now. I don't know what games basketball is typically on, Christmas sometimes as well too. But you get my point, man. You got football on Christmas Eve. Everybody's going to be watching, and I expect big numbers out of this game, man. But we're going to need to score 25 to 30 points to beat the Cowboys this weekend, man. And like Devontae Smith said, we got to put in the extra work. With Gardner, we'll do it, but we have to keep rolling. We have to keep going. And that's the mentality you have to have. You can play the playing game, you can point the fingers, but you have to go out there and play.
Right.
So go play and do the best that you can. Injuries happen. I'm just happy it happened at 13-1. Feel bad because I jinxed last con. Just said Jalen didn't get hurt, and then bang,
right,
he gets hurt, man.
Yeah,
but I'll just end it with
it's not your fault.
Right. And end it with also, this goes back to it's way too many runs. We just got too happy.
Right.
Too comfortable with the reality of the game of that. Look, man, we're already playing with kind of house money at this point. So we could have just ran the ball with Sanders. You're 12-1.
Exactly.
Run the ball with Sanders and get into the playoffs healthy, man. You don't need to do anything spectacular. I don't know if the MVP race presses him a little bit where he feels like you never know what's going on in a person's mind, man. Because he just balls every game, and that's just the only way he knows how to play. Either way, I'm happy to have him, and he'll bounce back.
Couple of things you said there, right there. We talked about it earlier too, that last week about Pollard and Zeke. And the thing about the Eagles defense, they have to know it. If they don't watch enough tape to realize, any fan, any casual fan can watch the Cowboys and realize if Pollard's in the game, it's going around the end. So just watch where he lines up. If he lines up to Dak Prescott's right, he's going left. If he lines up on the left, he's going right. With Zeke, it's usually going right up the middle or somewhere between the tackles, like you said. Zeke is not an outside runner because he doesn't have that same elusiveness. He's more a straight ahead guy. So they're not unlike Sanders to me. Sanders, you don't know which way he's going to go because if you put him in the right position, he can cut back, he can go wide, and he can go through the tackles. The problem, with the Eagles is, like you said, is that they played what I think I said last week, that 27th rush defense. The Bears rush defense was considered one of the worst in the league. And you weren't feeding Miles the ball against this team that you should have beat. And especially early on, to set the tone, you didn't run the ball. So before we get into the inadequacies of running, I wanted to go over the stats going into this Dallas game. Right now, the Eagles are third overall in offense with Jalen Hurts. They've now moved from 15th into 11th in passing yards per game. They are fourth in rushing per game. And the Cowboys right now are ninth overall offense, but they're 22nd in passing. I thought Dak Prescott was going to save them.
I'm not surprised. By that.
But they're averaging 225 yards a game. They're seventh in rushing. They had been a lot higher until recently. Teams have been finding a way to beat them. Meanwhile, the Eagles' defense is 19th against the rush. They continue to get better with Linval Joseph. They were down near the bottom of the league at one point. They're second against the pass at or only averaging 200 yards per game, and they're second in defense overall. So you now the Cowboys defense ranks 8 overall. So as far as yards, so you've got the 8th ranked yards allowed defense versus the 2nd ranked defense, but yet they're the number 1 team in the power rankings. All right, last time I'm going to say that. But here's the Dallas defense where their strengths are. We know where it is. It's against the pass.
Yeah.
215 yards per game against the pass. So Minshew's going to have to be really, really careful. It's got to be, like we said, where they're going to be coming in quick. So you're going to be able to have to throw slants and throw quick passes. I don't think he can afford early on to be trying to air it out with Devontae and AJ down the field like Hurts does. Take that off the table right now. Oh, and take the freaking Quez reverses off the table too, please. That never works. We tried that a lot in the Bears game. But here's the thing. Defense. The Cowboys average giving up 133 yards a game at 24th in the league. So what should the Eagles be? What should the game plan be? Now, we said it going into the Bears game that it should have been Miles Sanders, but here's the game plan right here in this meme, where you take a look at it and then you just throw it in the fire. You run the ball with Miles Sanders is all you need to know. But what the Eagles did against the Bears is inexcusable. And I even talked about it with you when they started to realize there was a problem in that game and they started to run Sanders. They're running him in an I formation behind Jalen Hurts, which you're telegraphing the run.
Right.
It's like you want to run well against a team that's weak against the run. You can't run it like that.
It's the pistol.
Pistol. Yeah, the pistol. That's what they were set up as. Sorry, but it's like, it's straight up. Miles Sanders is lined up behind Jalen Hurts, which is obviously telegraphing that you're going to run. Now, if you want to do that, fine. Mix in a play action. Play action a couple times first so that the defense doesn't key on Miles. So it was frustrating that we knew that Miles could run against this defense, but the Eagles offensive coordinator and coach were not calling the right plays to get Miles involved. They're running on first down. Bad idea. Their play selection was really off in the Bears game. I thought it was a trip. Now, Sirianni did say this after the game. They know it's an issue. We've got to get him the ball more, meaning Miles. We've got to do a little bit more called runs. That's on me and Shane. We will get that done. More called runs to get him into a groove. That's my mistake. We will get that fixed. Nick Sirianni also said that RPOs and reads can lead to taking what the defense is giving you, but he said it can't be to the extreme. Eagles players have said Nick is a good leader of men because he will be open and say when he has made mistakes. And I think the RPOs have led to Jalen Hurts running the ball much more than we want him to. I think that Jalen goes to give the ball to Miles and maybe overreads the RPO sometime, where he should just give the ball to Miles.
Yeah.
But he sees the defense coming through the line, but not trusting that Miles can get through the hole. And he ends up taking
himself more. Sorry to cut you off.
Exactly. No, or believes himself more so that he doesn't trust Miles enough. And he ends up taking the ball around the end. And that's what got him crunched in the Bears game, because he didn't hand the ball off to Miles. If he hands the ball off to Miles, Miles may get sacked for a 1-yard gain. But I tell you what, Jalen, you weren't going to go anywhere either. And instead you got hurt.
Right.
I don't want to say we can afford to lose Miles, but we can afford to lose Miles more than we can afford to lose Jalen going into the playoffs.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that we should sacrifice Miles.
No.
I'm just saying that we should take into situational awareness and that our quarterback is a valuable piece of property. Not saying not to run him, but to make sure that you run him when it's appropriate.
Essentially, essentially, Miles, it's just an unbalanced offense. That's we need to run the ball more. Your quarterback does not need to run 17 times. Now I know, there's a few like quarterback sneaks, and they're all not like designated runs. And talk about that beautiful designated draw that they called. Oh man, to score that touchdown. I mean, just part of the Red Sea. Speaking of, when he did run the ball, there's 10 yards. Nobody's within 10 yards of him.
Bears.
That was a really good play call. I know Sirianni wouldn't tell the media what happened there. Like, how did you know to call that play? He's like, I can't say anything. Right. Because you see Jalen, as soon as he see that guy come up, it's like he baits him. Like, come on, come. And like he knew that this was the result. Kind of has like that Giants. Remember where he takes a draw?
Oh, yeah.
Against, it's like they know when to run it. I thought that play was impressive. And the Devontae Smith screen that finally worked, man, that was a good check. Devontae mentioned it in the presser as well too. That he's like, man, Jalen checked to that. He called it off and he checked right down to that, and it worked. He got like 12, 13 yards. It was like, dang, we were backed up. So it was actually a really big play. Get us some momentum. Yeah, man. But 17 carries when you have 1,000-yard rusher just doesn't make sense. You're 12-1. You don't need to take these high risk. Jalen is at 184 contacts on the season. A lot of it's play calling, a lot of it's just decision making on the field. Like, I'm sure he feels like he's the best athlete out there, which is why he snatches it from Miles sometimes. Did you see on the goal line when he didn't even want to give it to Gainwell?
Yeah.
It's like, give me the ball back, man.
And that could be a problem. That could be a problem. Like you said, if you believe in yourself more than the people around you, like I said, he believes in Devontae, he believes in AJ, but he believes he's a better running back than anybody on the team. And I get that.
He's huge. I mean, he's a big back. Like, he's a big quarterback. He's just not a tall quarterback, which is why you get those pass knockdowns when it comes down to having a 6'1" quarterback. Even though Carson Wentz is 6'5", still gets him bat down. Still don't understand it. But anyway, I just think overall, man, hopefully this is a realization. It can't be that serious because he literally came back the next play, like he showed, with hit Devontae Smith, like on one of his best throws. So that was just weird. Like how you lay down, you have a injury is acute right there, boom, and you still just get up and throw a comeback to Devontae. Like, what the hell is going on? Like, that's why I thought he was fine. That's why I thought he was fine. He mentioned in the first half that he was cold, and I'm just like, look, man, between you and Devontae Smith with these cold hands, remember against the Jacksonville game? He was like, my hands are cold. My hands are cold. He dropped balls in that game. He was like, these country boys, man, with these. But it was supposed to be, it said the real feel of the game was 6 degrees.
Right.
So, mind you, they didn't even kick for 30 yards, the Bears. Something was going on. I think when you're watching, you probably don't understand the conditions that they're actually under. AJ got back and said, I'm thankful for the Philadelphia weather.
Yes.
After what we just played in. So maybe it was a little colder. So I thought I thought he looked a little stiff at times, a little off the back foot.
Right.
I'm just like, man,
without a doubt.
Warmed up. He just didn't look like when he normally fires and rips the ball, he just kind of was like he was cold, like a parent.
Yeah. No,
without a doubt. It warmed him up. But those first, like the first interception, like we haven't talked about the Bears too much. Like the first interception, that was just a bad throw, underthrow. Then the second one, it's like it's a miscommunication with Quez. Like, you know, when you see a really bad interception, most of the time it's poor communication.
Yeah.
Where you see him look at him like you're supposed to cut across. Even the announcer says he's expecting to cut across the safety, but you don't cut across the safety. So I guess it was either, and it looks that much worse when the wrong read happens. It's just like, just out of sync. But I look at it, man, as the law of averages. Anytime Jalen makes a mistake, you'll see him kind of happen repetitively, but they don't snowball, if that makes sense.
No, I agree. Yeah.
Where he still comes back and we're still talking about him having one of his worst games and still almost 400 yards. God damn it.
Right. Over 315 yards passing.
60-something rushing and 3 touchdowns. And that's still considered like an off day for Jalen.
Right.
Is the bar really high? I have to ask all these questions because not just look at football as a whole.
Right.
He's been performing every week, man, at a really, really, really high level and expected to get, 3 or 4 touchdowns every week. I'm like, man, he set the bar pretty high for himself right now. Because if you really look at it, like you look around the NFL, a lot of teams struggle. Like it's normal to struggle. It's the NFL. Mm-hmm. It's abnormal to go 13-1. This isn't normal. To go 13-1, that's not normal. Teams don't, every year, a couple teams aren't. So what's happening is, it kind of spoils you and makes you comfortable. And I think even Jalen got too comfortable, and then you just running the ball too much because it was a game you didn't need to do that, bro. You could have get that ball to Sanders a lot. It just didn't make any sense.
Yeah. So let's talk about that too. Is that like we talked about the cold it could cause a very big problem with communication as well. You're not going to be on your game if you're bitter cold and you're not focused. And so that caused a problem. But Jalen had 2 interceptions within the Eagles' first 4 drives. And very costly ones in Eagles territory. One was a drive killer after a great Devontae Smith catch. And then the next one, was on the own 30-yard line. And the you got to love the defense for bailing them out. They after the first interception, the Eagles had a big sack. Let's prop to the Eagles with another 6+ game sacks in this game to keep the Bears from moving down the field. Other than that drive by Justin Fields where he just freaking somehow got away from Hassan Reddick and streaked down the sideline, the Bears didn't do a lot. So those interceptions weren't that harmful, but it makes you wonder that after those 2 interceptions in the first 4 drives, why aren't you running the ball more? Because you started out with Hurts running 2 straight runs, and then you go to the pass, and then you end up getting picked off, and you're still not getting Miles involved in the game. It made no sense to me when you had against one of the worst rushing defenses. And again, and when we said it before, when they did run Sanders, they ran really out of position. It were not great called runs. And if that's their version of called runs, I fear for Sanders because he's going to get teed off on because there's no disguising those runs. So it was it was a mess. I mean, the thing about Jalen though was, like you said, he always ends up coming back. The touchdown that parted the Red Seas that put the Eagles up 10-6 at half. That's when at first I'm upset. I'm not in a good way because here we got 2 picks, and we've seen this before where the Eagles get off to a rough start. They did it against Jacksonville, but came back and won. They did it against the Colts, came back and won. And they did it against the Commanders, but didn't come back and win. They tried, it just kept getting worse. So when they went up 10-6, I kind of went, okay, they're going into half up. They should be able to keep that momentum going. And seriously, for the most part, they did. They came out in this first drive of the second half. Boston Scott with another huge kickoff return to the Bears 42, which God bless him. We were talking about not getting anything from our return game, and now we've had Covey and Scott, really get active. The Bears they had losing people left and right. They losing off their offensive linemen, defensive linemen in this game. So that helped the Eagles out. The 27-yarder to AJ down to the 2-yard line. And then the Hurts sneak to put him up to 17-6 was huge. AJ was all over this place again. He just had an amazing game. He had, when all was said, 181 receiving yards, which is a career high for AJ Brown. It just a godsend to this Eagles team. And right now, AJ Brown has 1,201 yards, which is a career high for him. He has had 12 catches of 50+ yards since 2019. It leads all NFL players over that span.
And yet, why he came to Philly. Remember during the trade, they were trying to clown Jalen. Why is he coming to Philly? His production is going to go down. Career high. and Devontae Smith is right behind him with it 1K if we can help it.
Exactly.
Another thing while we're talking about, go ahead. I'm gonna let you pull that next one up. Go ahead.
Well, yeah, that's what I was saying. Is speaking of just more records, I was showing Jalen in this game. He had three more rushing touchdowns. So he's got the single season franchise record for rushing touchdowns by a quarterback, and it just keeps growing. So he added on to that. I think it's 13 now. So, but again, to me, the rushing touchdowns aren't that big a deal as running the ball, because when we have rushing touchdowns, it's in that Eagle scrum is what I like to call it. It looks like a rugby scrum, and nobody has been able to stop this scrum yet. In fact, the touchdown that, after the play to AJ Brown that got him down to the goal line, and then they did the scrum, they even had the Bears player had his helmet underneath Kelsey's helmet before the snap. They got flagged for offsides, but you couldn't even stop it then. So, and what I loved about it was, although I'm not a big fan of 2-point conversions when you don't need them, the Eagles go for 2, get right back in the scrum because they got the false start, put the ball on the 1. You gotta love this. And instead of the scrum, they had that shift play where Juergens lined up over the ball and Kelsey lined up at left guard. And then they motioned everybody one over, which totally screwed up the defense. No one shifted with it. The ball's hiked and Jalen just runs around the end. And so it wasn't even a sneak. It was an end around by the quarterback.
Well
So
executed.
amazing stuff. So I'm not a big fan of going for two when you don't need to, but it is what it is. And so the Eagles, while they didn't have their best game, they still put up 25 points. And they still, have this offense that when they need to score, they do. Now, when they're on, they put up 48 like they do against the Giants or 40 against the Packers. When they're on, they just score at will. And tough conditions, as freezing again, Jalen Hurts said that he could barely feel his hands in the first quarter.
Man.
So those interceptions, he said, balls coming out, funky anyway. So you can forgive him. But let's put that in perspective. The dude, this is his first 2 interception game of the season, and he only has 5 on the whole entire year.
Yeah, man. I think what Jalen has proven, and I have to keep referring back to the record. The defense has played pretty well too. And then with the Boston Scott, it just makes it all
football is complimentary.
Because that's how I've always felt about football, man. That's why I never get too high, too low. You always expect your offense to carry the game and score points. But I'm just one of those weird guys that's like, no, man, we have a kickoff returner, we have a punt returner. What are they doing? We have a kicker. We have a defense. What are they doing? Those 53 men on the roster for a reason can't put it all down to 11 on the offense, because it's an entire game, man. So, Jalen Hurts is like the nightmare of the league. And I think that's why it hasn't really come on yet. The reason why I call it the nightmare is because it's like, man, what quarterback can throw for 300 and rush for 3 touchdowns? Like, it doesn't even make sense historically, So it's like, this is the nightmare. And that's why you're also 13-1. He still finished the game, but this is what you get when you have a quarterback that can run and can throw. This is the absolute nightmare. So, yeah, youngest quarterback. I mean, there you go, man. And you got guys. This puts you right in the category with like guys like Dan Marino, who could pass the hell out of the ball, still didn't get him a Super Bowl. So, you have elite young elite passers that still. He went to one. He went to one. Don't get me wrong, but it's just, he had a few. You just have to be able to pass. You just have to be able to play football, man. And right now, Jalen Hurts is just playing football the best he can. And, I'd rather save my smoke for when there's a real fire. And right now at 13-1, there's no fire. There's no fire.
Right. Yeah.
No fire.
For those that just listening to the podcast, the meme we have up, the stat we have up is Jalen Hurts is the youngest quarterback in the NFL to lead a team to a 13-1 start. And that's what we're talking about, is that you're right. There is no sense of alarm. The thing that you want to look at, like if you want to be like a Cowboys fan and make an excuse, because honestly, here's the thing that is ridiculous. And just so that we can enjoy this, this is what's ridiculous. The Cowboys had a 27-10 lead. They were on the road in Jacksonville, Florida, with ideal conditions. So it wasn't like they were in Chicago at 6-degree weather. It wasn't. They were in Jacksonville, Florida.
Who we played in hurricane weather. Sorry to cut you off. Who we played in hurricane weather when we played them. But go on.
Yeah. And went down 14-0, came back and won that game. I believe it was 29-20, something like that. I believe that's what the score was. But it wasn't the second after they went up 14-0. It wasn't close. The Eagles sucked it up and really didn't even make a game of it. The Eagles just drifted away again in monsoon conditions. Yet the Cowboys get the same team. Granted, it's in Jacksonville and we played them at home, but they get the same team in sunny weather and blow a 27-10 lead. So, after the game was over, that's how I felt. Eagles won and Cowboys lost. A little ice cube there. Today was a good day. So when you talk about this and you talk about the weather, it's one of those things like that's probably going to be one of the worst conditions the Eagles play in, because if they get all the games at home, say they do get the number 1 seed, they're familiar with the weather in Philly. And yes, it gets cold, but man, those those friggin' off the lake type, like in Chicago, off the lake type freezing cold, 6 below wind chill or 6-degree wind chill, and can get worse like it does in Green Bay and other places. The Eagles don't have to face that. They know what Philly weather's like. It's not going to be pleasant in January. It's not going to be pleasant, but it's going to be their house.
Yeah.
And that's enough to go on. So we talked a lot about the offense. I tell you what, I give Gannon a lot of crap, and I did not like it. The first drive, he still had 2 safeties back against Justin Fields. I thought that was ridiculous, and they did give up a lot of yardage. And then what bailed him out was sacks, constant sacks that put the Bears into 3rd and long situations where they could not run the ball. So if you look at like the end of almost every Bear drive except the 2 touchdown drives, they were always ended by some sort of sack that put them out of the range to be able to get a first down. So the defense, the front 4 came up huge. So we've got to talk about them again. And again, it's inexplicable that the Eagles are now considered 5th in the power rankings by crappy ESPN when their defense alone should put them in the top 3, if not number 1. So you got Javon Hargrave now, who is up to 10 sacks on the year, joining Hassan Reddick in double-digit sacks. He had 2 in this game. Then you've got Brendan Graham, who is now, what is Brendan Graham's numbers? He is now 8.5 sacks on the season after this game. And Josh Sweat, who is, again, one of my favorites, is at 9.5 sacks, which is a career high for him. By the way, speaking of Josh Sweat, I think I thought about this after seeing Josh Sweat get his 9th sack of the season. Man, maybe Derek Barnett going down was one of the best things that could have happened to the Eagles. Of all the players that you're going to lose for a season, we have given Barnett way too much leeway at that end spot with no return, and I don't think we're going to see him back. I think Sweat is taking that position, and he's going to be solidified at that right defensive end for a while. He's been so solid, and you got to love it. And then look at this overall. The Eagles have recorded 6+ sacks in 3 straight games for the first time in franchise history. That's 6+ sacks in 3 straight games. But again, this is when we go talking about them freaking Cowboys. It's like, you're still not good enough to be number 1 in the power rankings because our quarterback might be hurt for 1 game. That gives them all the ammunition they need to drop us. No team, here's another stat on the Eagles defense. No team has more sacks than the Eagles. 55 right now through 14 games over the last 20 years. No team, not even the Cowboys. No team. So I saw a guy on one of the pod say, I don't watch mainstream sports media anymore. I watch local Philly media because I know they're going to be biased, at least in a way that I can handle. So I watch A2D Radio, Edge of Philly Sports, things like that on YouTube. And just like us, for all the YouTube fans. And one of the things that one of the guys on there, I don't know his name, he's one of the podcast guys. He said that I think it was Dan Cilio. He said that he believes that the Eagles' defensive line is gonna sack, and pardon my language on this because this is him saying it, not me. They're gonna sack Dak Prescott so many times he's gonna be pissing blood by the 3rd quarter. And I hope that's the case. This team is capable of doing that. Now, the Cowboys have a good offensive line as well. They're a little banged up on it comparatively to the Eagles. And they've tried to bring people in like Jason Peters to kind of fill the gaps in that line, but we know how good Jason is at this point in his career. So it's going to be interesting to see that matchup between lines, what the Eagles defensive line does to the Cowboys, and can they get to Dak? I think Dak, to me, under pressure, is more interception prone than Cooper Rush was, and we made him throw 3 picks. So I wonder where that's going to lead. We just have to wait and see. You know what I mean?
Hey man, I just speaking to that while you have it here. It's so funny that you mentioned Dan Cilio, because he's synonymous with being like the biggest Jalen Hurts hater in Philadelphia media. Yeah. Like I mean, he is. You can see like throughout the season, like how he's had to just like shut up, you know. and when Jalen says things at the press conference, like there's a lot of people out there that want to see you fail. You know, I forgot the rest of the quote, but you know that he's mentioning in it. And always, but Dan Cilio, man, he's a Man, I don't know how that guy got hired, but he's a Philly hater, in my opinion, man. Because you gotta understand, bro, I'm from that area, man. So I just he doesn't represent. I don't know where this guy came from, but every time I see his media, he just brings my vibe down, man. But he's a big anti Jalen Hurts guy, and he's had to be like subdued this year because when you're 13-1. And every week you have first, or it's a lot of Eagles first. That's why you contribute to this 13-1 record. And it's like, look, man, if you're wrong, say you're wrong, but then let's get this positive energy going back into this team. So your quarterback isn't standing there at the podium like at 13. Imagine being 13-1 and still having to address people, and when he's not talking to media, he's talking about that Philadelphia Eagles media, about just not respecting him as a professional in general. When he says, "Y'all ain't asking about the Bears," remember I text you, I said he cussing them out right now.
Oh yeah.
He's still bringing it back. He's like, "Look, man, y'all up here playing. You don't think Jalen Hurts listens to press conferences with other quarterbacks that is respected in the league, and he hears the flow of those conferences." You know what I think Jalen Hurts' mantra is, and I don't know him that well, but you know what I think his mantra is? I don't take criticism from people I don't take advice from. And I believe that's he comes from such a strong upbringing. His father's right there. And it's like, I bet he's so well-rounded that he doesn't really get, that's why he can call it out. Like I'm sitting here balling at 13-1 and y'all questions seem off to me. That is the whole point. Like I'm 13-1 MVP candidate. And I still don't feel respected. And he's talking to the Eagles media, man.
Right.
And that's why when I say things, it sounds hyperbolic when I go, man, I don't even know if he wants to stay there, because imagine doing all of this and you can still feel that Dan Sileo, like, if you went to any other town, it wouldn't matter. But I mean, he's not worrying about that. He's a sheep. Yeah. But I just, when you said that, I just thought about all of Silio's takes before the Eagles got to this point. And it was like, man, if he had it his way, Jalen wouldn't even be in Philadelphia.
Right. Well, two things I want to say to that. Number one, in my defense, I don't listen to Dan Sileo all the time. And so in my defense, I don't listen. He just happened to be on my YouTube when I pulled up the other stuff I normally listen to, and he happened to be live. But he's not one I normally go to. I watch A2D Radio.
He's a loud guy.
I watch A2D Radio and Edge of Philly Sports. And if you guys are listening and need extra podcast guys, we're your guys, because they have a lot of different people on there. Yeah, but he's not one of my favorites. So that's number one. Number two,
wasn't putting you as a Sileo fan, guys.
No.
His name, and I know how prominent he is in Philly, and I'm just like, this guy.
So you're right. You're right. He is very negative Philly fan, and it's hard to deal with. So that's one of the reasons I don't listen to him too often. So that being said, I just heard about him this year. I like the Jacob Sports Media, so I go to that.
Yeah, I listen to Jack.
I had a friend that turned me on to that and said, hey, check that out. So I started, but then he's on there. So that's what ends up happening.
I listen to Jacob as well, too. That's why I know him, because I'm all like, here comes this guy just changing the vibe up.
But secondly, the other thing is that Jalen Hurts, as far as like going anywhere else, and I get what you're saying, I think that he's just going to get it everywhere he goes, because the problem is it's not just the Philly sports media, it's sports media in general. We talked about this a few weeks ago, how the sports media is so bad these days. They have no original takes. They all have the same take or the same questions. They don't care about going into the game against the Bears. It's all about what's on the horizon or what they can sell. They want to hear about Eagles Cowboys. They don't want to hear about Eagles Bears. And so that happens all the time.
I guess I say stuff like this, like, can you imagine Jalen playing for the Houston Texans? They would absolutely love him. You get me? Like,
yes.
like they would absolutely love him. And they haven't been a team that's won anything, so they would just love him. Like, they would just be appreciative that they're always in the hunt every year.
Yeah, you could look at how they treated Deshaun Watson, but the problem with that was Houston was such a small little ripple in the NFL world that Deshaun got a little bit of press.
You had JJ Watt, who
they had a decent run with
one of the best, and
D-Hop. They had
D-Hop there. They had J Watt there. They had Vrabel down there as the coach. Was Vrabel? No. What's his name? The other guy, big time guy that just never really got it done. Bill.
Yeah, the one that destroyed the team because he was working as GM and he sold everybody off. And I forget his name.
That team off, but before that, they were JJ Watt, I mean, he made his name. I mean, he's a legend in Houston. So I guess I see the appreciation that they have for JJ and showed JJ down there. You know, they appreciate really humble athletes. And him being a hometown guy, he's a super humble athlete. I just say that because, you know, sometimes, man, Philly media can be a little abrasive, man.
Yeah, I mean, if he were to go to New York or LA, though, it would be about the same thing.
100%.
New York is a bunch of haters. Look what they're doing to Wilson out there in the Jets line. Granted, he brought a lot of that crap on himself. But anyway, digress.
The Denver media, they are killing. Yo, if you were here, out here in Colorado, I would get too off. But like, they are. They are cooking Russell Wilson.
Oh, he deserves it though. That's the problem. He's not playing well.
It is just hilarious.
They gave up so much for him. Much for him. That's a resentment thing. They expect the Russell Wilson that went to the Super Bowl, and instead they're getting. I don't know what kind of Russell Wilson they're getting. They're hilarious. He's definitely
hilarious. I don't care because I'm just laughing at him. It's hilarious.
I get you. All right. Well, we haven't done this in a while, but we've got one that we haven't done, and we haven't done a Hell to the Gnaw in a few weeks. So it is time for one of my favorite segments. It is time for Hell to the Gnaw, to the Gnaw, no, no, no. Hell, no, no, to the Gnaw, no. Hell to the Gnaw, no. To the Gnaw, no. So this one on Hell to the Gnaw this week, for all those that are listening just on the podcast and not seeing the live stream, our Hell to the Gnaw this week is about Mike McCarthy, since it is Dallas week, and it's got a picture of Mike McCarthy just as is who he is, and it says Mike McCarthy always looks like he's rejoining a house party, suspicious that everyone overheard the aggressive dump he just took in the guest bedroom. And when you look at the picture with the caption, it exactly works perfectly. You know, the thing about Mike McCarthy staying in the Dallas thing is that he hasn't worn out his welcome in Dallas yet. And part of that reason he hasn't is because they do have some talent. But I tell you what, if Dak continues to struggle and throw interceptions and Mike McCarthy doesn't do something either in the offseason, start prepping for the future maybe, or fix something, bring in another wide receiver, getting him something, then I think McCarthy can get on the hot seat, especially if Dallas goes out in the first round. See, everybody, one of the bad things about expectations. So the ESPN does this every year. The mainstream sports media does it every year when the Cowboys actually have a good team, which is most years. Most years they have an average team, let's be honest. And they are vaulted to these unbelievable expectations, these amazing heights. The Eagles never have to deal with that. But when they fail, it is such a letdown for their fans. And I actually had a friend of mine this week when he was a Cowboys fan, who when Jalen went down, I messaged him. I said something to the effect of, well, looks like you guys are going to win Saturday because Jalen was going to be out. And he said, yeah, I just saw that. And I said, you know what? I'm an Eagles fan. I'm used to bad luck. We've had bad luck our whole time. We always have a key member go down. It can never be easy for an Eagles fan. He said, well, the problem with being a Cowboys fan is your team never living up to their expectations. And the problem, the reason the Cowboys don't live up to their expectations is because they're set way too high by the media that tell their Cowboy fans every year it's their year. They've been telling them it's their year since 1997. And when they won their last Super Bowl in 96, they've been telling them ever since. It's your year. And so they believe it. And so if you're a Cowboy fan, you're used to this constant letdown. And again, coaches won't stay there long if they're not aggressive. Mike McCarthy got run out of Green Bay because he only produced one championship.
Like they happen every year, huh?
Yeah, exactly. So it is what it is. It's pretty crazy. So
yeah, I mean, go ahead.
Go ahead. Oh, I
was going to say about the Dak hype. The Dak hype. He's always going to have this season where if he has it, basically when Dak line was very good, they looked very good. When it was shaky, Tyron Smith is down. It's been shaky, man. And the difference between, I think the difference maker in that game, man, is that our defense, which doesn't get enough, our defensive line, when you see those 55 sacks, that also is attributed to the pass defense. 55 sacks, and that's just sacks. We're not talking about hits, rush throws. We're talking about 55 sacks. And, I know our line gets a lot of flack for being, terrible, well, getting better in stopping the run. But the reason why our passing defense, besides the fact that we have good corners, is that they're making the quarterbacks now get the ball out very fast. Sweat is on them every drive. It's like they can start to feel number 7. Then you start to feel 94. Then you feel it, Hargrave. I mean, Hargrave's having a hell of a season, man. So, I just wanted to make that quick point is that these guys are going to be on Dak's head, man. This is Dak's weakness right here, just constantly being harassed. The teams that he's played well against, he's had a little time. Indy didn't have a crazy line, and neither does Minnesota, really. Minnesota doesn't have a really crazy line, but they beat them 40-3, right? They beat Indianapolis 54-9. I'm sorry, 54-19.
Right.
So, but then you go to Houston, which the Eagles kind of struggled with. They had a little bit more of a solid defensive line too, but then we got going. They really didn't. They got lucky, Cowboys. But last week, luck ran out. It was unfortunate because the pass did hit Noah Brown. He should have caught it. It's kind of a fluke play for them to lose the game, but it just goes to their overall hype in general, man, of just, you're going to be let down at some point. This goes back to even Romo. Even as recently as Romo, they were doing it when they had Romo, and he fumbles the snap. the hole, he fumbles the hole.
Yeah.
I mean, it's an iconic play and try to picks it up and run it. And then Dak has kind of been the same thing, They've still been able to have these good offensive years, and now they have a monster defense, but just can they win the games they're supposed to win? And that was a game they're supposed to win yesterday to keep the pressure on us.
Right.
We lost. And we won with a hurt Jalen Hurts. You can't make this up. We're just playing better than them because we're better than them.
We've been all year, and yet it won't admit it. So you talked about the Minnesota game. That was the only game they've really blown anybody out. And the Eagles really blew out Minnesota too, but took the foot off the gas and kind of let the steam run out. I think 24-7, something like that, 28-7. It was early on in the season, and it was a no contest game. And then if you watch Minnesota's defense, like against Indianapolis this past week, they're a horrible zone defense. They're worse than Gannon. They run that really bad shell zone, and man, Indianapolis picked them apart, and then they had the turnovers on top of it. The problem is with Indy, they give up so many points in the fourth quarter. And so you look at the Cowboys game, they technically blew out the Colts, but look at that game a little bit closer. That game was 20-19 or 21-19 in the fourth quarter when Dak threw an interception that was ruled that it hit the turf and no one ever reviewed it. Probably wasn't an interception. It looked like it did kind of hit the turf. Colts didn't feel the need to challenge it, but it could have been just a little inch higher. Then Colts got the ball in Dallas territory, only down 21-19. Instead, the freaking Colts became a turnover machine late in the game and gave up 3 scores, like bam, bam, bam. And it just got ugly. But the Cowboys were struggling against the Colts just like we did. But the Colts, man, in the fourth quarter, for some reason, if you look at their fourth quarter points, they give up so many points, man. It is unreal. And this is a team that beat the Chiefs, played us tough, played Dallas tough, and played Minnesota tough. They just can't seem to put games away. They can't.
Cowboys scored 5 touchdowns in that fourth quarter. Michael Gallup, 3-yard touchdown. Malik Hooker, 38-yard fumble return. Tony Pollard, 30-yard run. Zeke, 4-yard run. Malik Davis, 23-yard.
And most of these were after really bad turnovers too. Colts became turnover happy, but up to that point, it was 21-19. So then they get full of themselves thinking that, oh, well, we got this. I'll tell you what, if the Eagles had been up just 21-19 against the Colts and had won a blowout like that, I would be happy, but I'd also be like, dang, we almost lost. Just like when we had to have scored 14 points in the fourth quarter to beat the Colts when we did. So anyway, it is going to be a game of epic proportions, no matter who starts for the Eagles. My take in this is we'll see what happens. I'm not getting my hopes up, but I'm not going to let them deflate either. It's Christmas Eve, and it is just a football game. It is a big football game, probably going to be one of the most watched ever. but we need to just realize where, this is a holiday season. So we want to say Merry Christmas to everybody out there. Enjoy Christmas with your families. Whether you're a Cowboy, Merry Christmas, Cowboy fans. See, I said it. I can be nice. It is Christmas. Enjoy the time. Don't get so wrapped up that you throw a glass through your flat screen TV because Dak throws his third pick of the game and the Eagles are up 40-20. Don't do that, Cowboys fans. Enjoy the season. By the same token, I won't break my TV if the reverse happens. Before we go, though, I do want to show, I like from time to time when my memories comes up. I've always been on Facebook and social media posting about my Eagles. And yesterday was December 19th, and this memory popped up, and I'm going to read it to you, Tubby, and I want you to tell me, what am I describing on this day, December 19th, 2010, 12 years ago? And this is the post I put. OMG, about 15 exclamation marks. My Eagles, another 15 exclamation marks. What a game, a ton more exclamation marks. What a huge win, a ton of exclamation marks. Wow, a ton of exclamation marks. I am freaking losing it right now. Down 21 and no problem. Vic is awesome, and D-Jack runs back a punt for the winning TD with no time left. Tons of exclamation marks. Amazing. Tons of exclamation marks. December 19th, 2010. What game was that?
It has to be that Giants game.
It is.
It has
Miracle.
to be that Giants game. I was sitting there myself with Herb and Kimbrough. I remember Sergeant Kimbrough.
Oh, yeah.
And we were in my and they was like, man, the game's over, bro. The game's over. And I remember just jumping on my poker table and spilling beer all over the place when D-Jack ran it back. So it has to be that game, man.
It is. That is the game. And I just came up and it made me smile.
Mhm.
So regardless of what happens and how the season plays out, I'm thankful for this season going into this holiday season. I'm thankful to have a friend like you.
Thanks.
That we've known each other for an extremely long time now. We're going on, 12 years of friendship, of being fellow Eagle fans. We've gone to plenty games together. So Merry Christmas to you and your family. I can't say it enough. We are going to be done this week after today because we covered both the Bears and the Cowboys preview. So we're going to take a well-deserved Christmas break. We will be back next Tuesday to break down the Eagles-Cowboys game, win or lose. But again, just to remind everybody, it is the Christmas season. So thanks so much.
Yeah, man. Thanks you for those kind words there, Lee. Merry Christmas to your family as well, too, man. Want to give a special shout out to Nick Sirianni. I don't feel like we talk about Nick Sirianni enough. I know we had the sound bites today, but man, you got a coach in his second year, 13-1. That's that also sets big, high expectations, man. So shout out to the young and Nick Sirianni. I guess we couldn't really be here without you. You made the tough decision last year to stick with Jalen Hurts, keep this team together. You didn't let the media get you down when they talked about you planting roots and flowers and stuff like that. And look at this flower now. It's 13-1, bucko. Talk about flower. I bet you everybody wish they had flowers with 13-1 right now. Everybody wants some Sirianni flowers. So shout out to Sirianni, man. Probably coach of the year right now. I'd be a little disappointed if he wasn't, for a team that wasn't projected to have a winning record this year. So it'd be some hypocrisy there if he's not the coach of the year. Shout out to Stetson for getting it right on the offense, calling good calls, man. And Gannon, man. I know, Gannon, we gave you a lot of flack, but you haven't killed us to the point where you've cost us multiple games. So the game we really got cost us with the 3 turnovers for ourselves, man. So yeah, man, that's really just happy for the Eagles, man. The coaches don't get enough credit, man, especially Sirianni, man. You should hear his name buzzing a lot more. And you expect him to have inconsistent calls because he's a young coach. So yeah, he's going to forget to run Miles Sanders. It's his second year as a coach. So those things are expected. They aren't expected from the greats, but they are expected from young coaches. Second year on the job, man. I think he's doing a pretty good job. So shout out to Sirianni, man.
And he doesn't get enough recognition for that coach of the year, like you said. And neither is Hurts for MVP. I mean, his votes or his odds to win the MVP with the injury dropped dramatically, and it just shows we just don't get the respect or love. So maybe on Christmas, we can have a little bit of a Christmas miracle, and maybe the odds will go in our favor in a crazy game in Dallas. Who knows? Stranger things have happened. I think that it's going to be a challenge no matter how we look at it, but the Eagles will be up to it. It is going to come up Christmas Eve, and it's so weird because all of the games, except for 3 and the Monday night and the Thursday night game, are all going to be on Saturday this week because of just the season, because it's Christmas Eve. So there's going to be a ton of games at 1 o'clock, 2 or 3 at 4 o'clock, and that's when the Eagles are going to play. 4:25 at Dallas, Philly at Dallas. Don't know who's going to be the starter yet. Could be Gardner. It's leaning toward Gardner, but man, there could be some surprises, and who knows what could happen. I do want to mention, if you haven't picked up the Philly Special Christmas album, I wanted to play some excerpts off it, but it's not streaming yet. So I do want to say there's some great stuff on there. There's their rendition of Silent Night that goes EAGLES. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
There's also I think it's called Santa Claus is Coming to Town, where Jason Kelce does his best Bruce Springsteen, and he gets all of the Eagles involved, including Jalen Hurts, Hassan Reddick. It's a fantastic song to listen to. I will be playing that all this weekend for Christmas Eve. So look forward to it. I'm looking forward to the game, win or lose. I'm going to have a great weekend. I don't care what happens. You can't take my fun away from me, Cowboys fans. And I'm never talking to you again. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Tubby for his final words of the week for the holiday.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You know, what I'm going to be listening to is that Temptations rendition. Silent Night is such a classic. In my mind, I'll leave you with that. I want you to be free. But anyway, yeah, man, Christmas around here, you know, very fortunate to be with my family, man. It's dope, man. You know, wouldn't have it any other way. Like I said, man, on here with my good friend, man, talking Eagles football. You'll love to see it. Man, I think we can still beat the Cowboys. I expect the Eagles go to 14-1 because we have our squad, man. We have all our horses still there except for our biggest horse. But, man, we should be able to have a little fill-in. Just a little fill-in. Gardner Minshew is healthy. That's a good thing. He should be sharp when in the league where a lot of guys are really wearing down. I also want to mention that I'm in semifinals in both my leagues in fantasy football. If you Eagles fans out there, if you can push all your luck to Tubby, give me that luck in these double semifinals, stressful weekend. With all that said, fly, Eagles, fly.
And go Birds. Merry Christmas, everyone. We'll see you next Tuesday. Go Eagles!